Hey, Texas Values Facebook friends, Jonathan Saenz here, president of Texas Values. Great to be with you again as we finish rounding out the 2020 year. Boy, what different words can you use? Unprecedented, like no other. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that can be said for 2020 to really mark it as a year like we've maybe never seen, at least in our generation. But whatever the case may be, there's one thing that didn't change, and that's Texas Values focused on the issues of faith, family, and freedom in the courts, the legislature, in the media. And that's what we do best. And that's where we focus this year, maybe sometimes in a different way or, with different technology. As I say to you, I am in my office. We have members of our team in our office today. I'd probably be over at the Capitol too, meeting with some people if the Capitol was open the way it usually is. So a lot of times our meetings have not been on site, but in other ways as well. But we have not stopped working. And so, and I want to mention to you, we want to talk about the highlights of 2020. And a big part of that is so you can see value in the work we do and you can consider making a tax deductible donation to Texas Values. It is the end of the year for us, and we still need that financial support. And so I got a graphic that we're going to put up in just a minute here so you can see where we are. And look, the issue of churches being essential has been huge this year. We have been doing a lot of work in that area. We're focusing a lot of our work on that area, and we've been working alongside churches in that area. And so I think we've got a graphic for people that are watching that can see that. And look, that's on our social media site too, on Facebook, if you want to share that. But we've got a matching grant in place. We are a nonprofit 501c3 tax deductible organization. And so that means if you want to make a donation at nationvalues.org today, you can do that. And you can see we've still got a little bit to go on our matching grant. All donations up to $73,000 will be matched. And that helps us not only today, but going into the state legislative session, where a huge goal of ours is to make it clear in state law that churches are essential. There shouldn't have been a question, but apparently there was for some local government officials, and some churches are still trying to navigate because there's a lot of concern and a lot of confusion at times. And so, but make your tax deductible donation today at txvalues.org. Help us meet our budget goals so we can stay strong. As a matter of fact, I've got some goodies that I, am willing to give away later. One is this great coffee mug, the Come and Take It logo. You can have there on your coffee mug, $50 donation, but you got to send an email to info@txvalues.org. But let's tell you a little bit more about some things that happened this year that we consider victories, we consider to be so important. But before we do that, we want to remind you, not only has our work been this year, but it's been since 2012. And we've got a legacy of working on these issues where we've had some tremendous accomplishments, helping pass a religious liberty and a pro-life law in the past 4 legislative sessions. But one of the highlights of this year was beating Planned Parenthood in court. Okay, this case went into federal court where Planned Parenthood wanted to continue to perform abortions, even though at one point medical services that were essential were the only ones that were allowed to be provided. Abortion is not essential. Okay, maybe that should be a hashtag. Churches are essential. Abortion is not essential, but the Planned Parenthood felt differently, and so they sued the state in order to keep taking the lives of innocent human beings, to continue killing unborn children. We filed a powerful legal brief in that case at the Fifth Circuit and got victory on that issue. And for about 2 weeks, abortions in the state of Texas were not being provided. We think maybe for the first time since Roe versus Wade, and about 2,000 lives estimated were saved. And so huge victory on that. But I want to continue to go through our slideshow so you can see a little bit of some of the other highlights. This was a huge event we did this year where we had the Faith, Family, and Freedom Policy Forum here in the Central Texas area. We had people in person and online. We doubled our attendance. We had great speakers there, elected officials from the federal, state, and local. Matthew West, Christian singer, that was there. He had a great moment with Abby Johnson, who you could see was one of our speakers. And then, of course, some work we were doing to help get people to get out and vote for biblical values. But earlier in the year, we had a tremendous victory in that, or we started doing some important work that translated into a very important victory against Carroll ISD. Okay, this is a school district that is in the North Texas area. And so they had this policy in place, this plan, as they were calling it, to do a whole lot of different things that were a lot of leftist ideology, but there were some things in there that promoted LGBT issues. And so they really tried to disguise it in a lot of ways. We smoked it out. We presented testimony against it. We had hundreds of people that were able to help get involved in this issue and bring attention to it. And the whole thing was put to a halt. Okay, this I think was in late July, early August. But the concern continued about what was happening behind the scenes. And so as a result of that, some other people filed a lawsuit that we supported as well. And a judge ruled that violations of the Open Meetings Act were violated, provisions of the Open Meetings Act were violated. And so the whole thing has been put on hold. I want to bring in our policy director, Jonathan Covey, who was a part of this effort. And Jonathan, as I remember, you drove up to that area, even though all the meetings were virtual. We felt it was important to meet with people on the ground as we navigated these technology issues, but then presented testimony.
Yeah, absolutely, Jonathan. And Carol is an example of a really positive victory that we've had. But we drove up there, and we were able to meet with parents on the ground. We were able to talk with people. We were able to testify virtually. But just this massive 34-page long document, a cultural competence action plan, is the way they coined it, or the way they termed it. And it had just massive details on how to increase the presence of LGBTQ groups, how to increase the presence of curriculum, special protections over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. And we were able to come in and be able to get it to a point where it's no longer being pursued. And that is just, that's just fantastic for those students and those parents in that school district. And we're very excited.
Well, and look, I have to be honest, we certainly always work towards victory, but sometimes you can just tell where the deck is stacked against you. The numbers just don't look like they're going to happen. You know a little bit maybe about the elected official we did on the school board, and boy, we were about 2 votes short. And I remember we were there and we just started praying at one point during the hearing. And right after that, something interesting started happening where the board members, school board members were saying, we're not even really sure what's in this. Hold on a second. Should we really be adopting this and moving forward? And it found out, and this is one of the reasons I believe there was an Open Meetings Act violation, is because there were certain individuals and school board members doing all this work for, and they admitted, we've been working on this for several years. And school board members were saying, when they were getting frustrated, when they saw maybe it wasn't going to pass, they were saying, you have? This is the first time we're hearing about it. So nonetheless, I mean, these are things we see sometimes, but we were very fortunate because we didn't know those things were going to happen. And I just talk a little bit about this because I want people to understand. And Joseph, if you can go back to the slide that shows our team. So people, I kind of skip forward across that. But there are 11 people that are part of our team. Some are full-time, some are part-time, but it's not just a couple of us there as far as working, even though it might be a couple of people on the ground. There's other people that have been a part of our effort. You can see the different things, the different roles that they're in, and we continue to grow with our organization. But it's having these individuals that are experts, that have a lot of experience in these fields, that allow us to put together an advocacy package or an effort, whether it's media, whether it's outreach, whether it's the church, whether it's social media, whether it's law and legal backgrounds like many of us have, and putting all those dynamics in place. And sometimes it's political, knowing who some of the conservative political leaders are in the area to get them involved. And so a lot of that went into this effort in Carroll ISD, knowing that the deck was sort of stacked against us. The numbers didn't look good. We went and did it anyway because it was the right thing to do. And then some really interesting things started happening. And that's what happens in a lot of times. People are like, you know what? Hey, what they're saying is not right. Somebody's here to look out for us. Let's multiply this effort. And all of a sudden it grows. And then, I mean, who knew that somebody was going to file a lawsuit? And so we did file a Public Information Act request to get some of this information. But I just want people to understand and appreciate how these things happen. And our organization having supporters in all 254 counties of the state is a big reason why we can go into a community like Carroll ISD, who we knew some people and were concerned, and then kind of build that effort. And sometimes you get fortunate and something falls apart for the other side that maybe we didn't expect. And you end up in a position where There you go, victory. But this issue's not over, so we're going to have to keep our eye focused on that. I'm going to bring David Walls in. He's going to be with us for a little bit of this telecast, and go back to our slide on the Church Ambassador Network, Joseph. This is a new project. David Walls is the Vice President of Texas Values. David, we worked a lot on this project this year. Speaking of getting coalitions and folks together, the Church Ambassador New Network, building a relationship between the shepherds of God's church and God's government. We've got 6 figures invested into this. There are thousands of churches in the state of Texas. It's an ambitious effort, but we keep hearing time and again, where is the church? How can Texas Values help the church and church leaders get more involved? And that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, Jonathan. I mean, this has been a effort to grow the work of Texas Values in terms of church outreach. It's been on the heart of our leadership team here at Texas Values, and something that's been near and dear to the heart of some of our board members who challenged us, well over a year ago to move forward in this effort, really to step out in faith, recognizing that there's just a tremendous opportunity. Texas, we're so well situated with the amount of work that we do, whether it be, as we've talked about, in Carroll ISD and Austin ISD and all over the state where we work at the local level to our work at the Texas Capitol, to really serve as a connection point to bring together the shepherds of God's church with the shepherds of God's government. And that's really what the Church Ambassador Network is about. We're excited to be really to launch this in full force this year. As we showed on the slide earlier, we've got a great new team member, Brian English, with just a tremendous background, pastoral experience, political experience, nonprofit experience, that's going to be leading this effort for us. We've already got several hundred churches and pastors that have gotten signed up and that are getting communications related to the Church Ambassador Network. And I encourage folks to go learn more on the website, txvalues.org/church. If your pastor or church is not familiar with this effort yet, I encourage you to share that with them and get them signed up and get them connected with
yeah, look, it's an
yeah.
It's an exciting new project. Hey, Joseph, if you'll drop the share screen for a minute so folks can see our lovely faces. And a couple people are commenting, we're doing a highlight and really a review of what's happened this year. Some of the most important work that Texas Values has been involved in 2020, a wrap-up video or part 2 wrap-up video for the major issues, the highlights, the important victories for faith, family, and freedom in the state of Texas, particularly in the courts, the legislature, and the media. Those are the arenas that we work in. David, speaking of the Church Ambassador Network, an area that Texas Values was very involved in this year was encouraging Christian voters to get out and vote. We were able to touch thousands, if not millions of voters in a variety of different things we do in our work. But that continues, that election cycle is sort of, is over. There's some special elections, there's some things up in the air as far as the presidential, but, this was a busy year for us to engage and get people to go out and vote in a year where a lot of people were being told, stay home, right? How do you do that? How do you get to them to the polls? How do you make sure that they're aware of that? But the technology that we've used, the relationships we built over the year, the organization of ours growing, really put us in a position to touch a lot of voters. There's some numbers out there that suggest that the numbers for Christian voters were up. Those were good things. And I think we can legitimately say as a result of some of the work that we did and that you helped us lead.
Absolutely. And there certainly was a record amount of activity that Texas Values and our partner organization, Texas Values Action, was in. It has always been a core part of our mission as it relates to churches and elections, to equip them on what their rights are. Of course, we've got our big voters guide effort that we had to equip voters across the state to know where the candidates stand so they can make educated and values affirming decisions when they go to the ballot box. And we really saw that this year in Texas. While certainly there's some interesting things still going on at the national level, and we've got the big elections going on in Georgia that with the balance of the U.S. Senate up for grabs, we certainly are looking forward to what's ahead of us here in Texas and at the state capitol. There was a lot of talk throughout this election season that we were going to continue to see a shift at the Texas Capitol away from a pro-life and pro-religious freedom majority. That did not end up happening. Texas voters cast a clear and resounding vote in November for pro-life, pro-religious freedom candidates up and down the ballot. And so we're excited about the prospects in this upcoming legislative session, although it's going to be probably different and challenging, and some of the details about how folks are going to be able to testify and even come to the Capitol are still coming out as we speak, and probably more forthcoming. You can know for sure that we are going to be at the Capitol every single day advocating for your values. And certainly this just shows, coming out of election year, going into a legislative session year, the comprehensive nature of the work that we do from A to Z, understanding that we've got to be involved in every part of the process to ultimately see biblical values advanced across our state.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Dave's got to peel off. He's got a couple of things we do. It's a busy day. Okay.
It is.
Last day of the
Happy New Year.
So donations coming in, trying to pay some, bills, make sure all the paperwork's in place. But that doesn't stop the policy work we do. And look, we didn't start in 2019, which was not a state legislative year, just sitting around wondering, what are we going to do next legislative session? We did do some of that, and we've already prepared that. There's some bills that have been filed or that are going to be filed soon that we've been a part of helping with that effort. But we were out there sharpening the sword, if you will, and keeping our ability to testify and navigate through policy issues very strong, because unfortunately there were a lot of things that happened. One of those was in Mansfield Independent School District. Joseph, we can go back to the slideshow for a minute, and I'll bring Jonathan Covey, our director of policy, in. This might have been one of the first things that he got involved in, as a matter of fact. And so where we had a victory, Mansfield is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We had a victory on issues related to, this was the school district being pushed to adopt LGBT policy issues and so on in the school. If we can drop the share screen and go back to Covey, Joseph. Jonathan Covey, you hadn't been on the team all that long, and here we were involved in a major issue in Mansfield School District right after a Supreme Court decision touching on some of those issues, but we got a victory, and it was an important one.
We did. We got a victory, and you're right. It was fascinating, especially as one of my first projects on the job, because of course I've been on the other side of that, where you're listening to testimony and not necessarily as much on the testifying side. But it was really a very highly positive victory. And of course, Jonathan, this with Mansfield, this harkens back all the way to 2018. This has been an ongoing fight with Mansfield ISD, even going back to when a Mansfield ISD elementary teacher was teaching LGBTQ issues in the classroom, and there was a lawsuit filed there. But then in June of this year, of course, we had the victory where the Mansfield ISD Board of Trustees decided to take a vote on whether or not to add sexual orientation into their school policies for their employees and for their students. And Texas
which is not required by law.
Which is not required by law at all. And Texas Values staff showed up. We testified virtually. We also provided information and legal analysis and testimony to the Board of Trustees. And it ended up that they voted 7-0 to keep that bad LGBT language out of the policies. And it was a highly productive victory for those students and for those parents.
No, absolutely. And just one of the other many reasons why we think you should make a tax-deductible donation today to Texas Values, txvalues.org. I want to hear the phone ring, okay? I was having some fun with this yesterday. You can call us to make a donation. If what you're hearing, you're inspired, you see value in what we do, we have to have funds in order to do that, okay? We got to pay the bills in order to save the world, as I was told one time. 512-478-2220. 512-478-2220. There it is. The phone rings. Man, it's like clockwork. I love it. But that might be somebody giving a donation, but maybe it will be. 512-478-2220. Make a donation right now. We're waiting for you. We are in the office working. But, Jonathan Covey, to your point, being on the other side, this is the caliber, the caliber of people that we have. You see, my law degree is behind me. Jonathan Jonathan Covey also has a law background. He also worked for many years at the state capitol. To his point about hearing testimony, was chief of staff for Texas House member James White, was also a senior advisor for State Senator Bob Hall for many years. So he knows how this process works. And so these are the kind of people that are part of our team. You saw that graphic earlier with the 11 members of our team and different people that are doing different work. They've been around quite a while. And so, but in order to do that, we have to have financial support. But, you know, it's interesting. It's probably the better word I should use. But when I think about this review and what happened this year, particularly with some of these key victories, my mind shows a visual of me being at home when I was celebrating, okay? Or I was sitting at my kitchen table when I saw the vote for Carroll ISD and the other side just fall apart. I mean, remember, it's so fascinating.
Totally get that.
The way your mind works, but that's where we were. But all of this stuff, and we have our concerns about the limitations on government and how they navigated some of this. But at the heart of it, we had work to do. So if we could only do it virtual, well, that's what we were going to do. If that meant I was going to sit at my kitchen table or in my bedroom closet, as I was sometimes, sorry, honey, where I had a little makeshift office set up, whatever the case was, that's what we would do at Texas Values. And so when some of those victories were happening, I remember, I was actually at my home when we were getting these results. But that's what a lot of the year looked like. But that's what we do at Texas Values. Whether we're going to be on the ground or we've got to navigate technology, that's not going to stop us from having an impact. And it's not going to stop you having an impact through our work as well. And so it's just a funny reminder to me, right? And I know, Covey, one of your first day with us, you were right there, probably in the same room you are right now. Had not been to the office yet, but it didn't stop you from getting the work done.
Yeah, no, Jonathan, technology is great. And we are going to be effective regardless of where we're at. It was a strange first couple of days or first couple of weeks, actually, starting a new job and being in your own home and working from there. But we were able to overcome a lot of different obstacles. And the reality is now session's getting close, and we've been preparing for a number of priority items in session as well.
Well, let's look. We can't force Joseph to stay silent the whole time. We'll go back to a little bit more content in a minute. Joseph, let's go to one of the slides so people can see a little bit more options about how to give. If you want to go to one of the slides that we have that shows some of those options, or go to the donate page so people can do that. And I'm going to go back to a minute some of the work we did for churches. But talk to us about Frontline Friends, the Cornerstone Club, and then just the importance of people, at any amount, making a decision to give today.
Absolutely. So the slide I have on right now is the Frontline Friends, which is a great way to help us month to month, because sometimes maybe you can't give like the Cornerstone Club, which is $5,000 or more, but maybe you can give $30 a month. Maybe you can give $60 a month or $120. That's like basically $1 a day for the whole year. And you're able to help us get those financial needs throughout the year. And if that's something you're wanting to do, you also get this nifty little coin here, which is it has come and take it, but it also has a little Bible on it instead of the canon, because that's what we're basically daring the opposition to do, is to come and take it.
And that's what they're trying to do, right?
Right. And so that's the reason that has become almost an icon here at Texas Values.
I don't know that you can find that anywhere else, right? We need to get a patent or trademark on it, a few lawyers, because it's something that's been unique to us, but it is a defining visual reminder of our work. But that's what, whether it was Beto O'Rourke or whoever, really challenging and making it very clear that they were coming after churches, local government people. This year, I tell the story a lot about, law enforcement circling a church in San Antonio when they were having a parking lot service. And going into the legislative session, some of the ban the Bible bills we've seen pop up again that we defeated last session. But Joseph, also, it's my understanding too, that a lot of people, really at a level of maybe 25, 50, 100, a lot of those supporters across the state that are so important to us, that's an area where I think we've seen a little bit more struggle. And so, but hey, this time of year with a matching grant in place, if you can just give 25, right, it's going to turn into 50.
Right. And that's the thing is that there's a lot of organizations out there that do individual projects in pro-life, and there are a lot of great organizations, don't get me wrong, but we're one of the few organizations in the state of Texas, and likely the only one that does all those things that we're doing, all the religious liberty, pro-life, family issues across the state. And we are very unique in the sense that we have supporters throughout the entire state. So every county, we represent every county in more than just a legal way or a educational way, but we help them in a way that we know that there are people that support us financially and prayerfully everywhere in the state. And so it's very important to me, it's important to everyone here at the Texas Values that for you to know that every dollar that you donate, whether it's big or small, a dollar helps Texas Values, and it helps keep Texas Values.
Well, that website is txvalues.org. Okay, so I did this before. Donations of $50 or more, you can get this new Texas Values ornament. It's got the nativity on the other side. My tree is still up. I can't even hold this the right way. Okay. Oh, you gotta love technology. It's got the nativity on one side. It's got our logo on the other. Just came off the assembly line. And then also you could get this Texas Values Arctic tumbler with our logo, insulated tumbler. There's Arctic right there. Okay. Texas company, $50 tumbler, coffee mug, or ornament. All right. But you got to send an email to info@txvalues.org to get this offer, $50. Because we want everybody to be a part of it. Look, and if you can only give $1, whatever you can do, we want everybody a part of our work. We know it's been a challenging year. We really want everyone part of our work to make a contribution, to feel that connection. And you can still do that. txvalues.org is the website. We're about to run out of time. But Joseph, we go back to the slide on the churches. I want to finish up by talking about the churches and also the pro-life issue, because that's going to lead into this legislative session. Mr. Covey, I know that's where you've done so much work as the Texas Capitol. And, look, bills are already being filed. The session starts January 12th. We're going to have members of our team, including Mary Elizabeth Castle, who was on our video yesterday, at the Capitol every day. Brian English, our Church Ambassador Network Director, is going to be bringing pastors there. We're going to have grassroots there. But boy, Joseph, go to the slide where we were, the blog post about some of our work on churches. So much of our work this year was helping keep the churches open. Some of that is still happening, and churches are still worried about some of these things. And, we'll leave it up to them to decide how they do it. We want at least for them to know that we want to keep the government out of their decision and not have them not having church services because they're afraid of what the government is going to tell them they can and cannot do. That's why we want to have a state law that makes it clear churches are essential. We're still doing that work, Mr. Covey, but we're going to be doing that going into January. That's just another reason why it's important for people to support us.
Yeah, Jonathan, the reality is session is so close right now, and we've been preparing a number of priority items, but you're right. Churches are essential, and that's one of the priorities that we have, is making sure that churches and religious organizations are protected and essential. And look, you would think that this would be a really intuitive thing. You said this before. We have the First Amendment, we have RFRA, we have all these protections. And yet during the early months of this pandemic with COVID-19, we had multiple churches, crisis pregnancy centers, religious organizations, all contact us asking questions about COVID restrictions and how they were placed and what they can do to offer services. So we'll be helping push legislation that makes it clear once and for all that churches are essential because faith is essential, and people's spiritual well-being is just as important as their mental well-being and their physical condition, if not more so.
No, that's absolutely right. Churches are essential. Life is essential. We'll be working on numerous pro-life efforts. As I mentioned earlier, we have a legacy of the past 4 legislative sessions of passing, being a part of helping pass a pro-life and religious liberty law in the state legislative sessions. That's where we do the bulk of our work at Texas Values. And look, there's 254 counties. We're one of the largest states, and our population is, I forget what the latest numbers are. There are a lot of people that we impact, and a lot of states will do things based on what Texas does. So if we can have an impact here in Texas, we can impact the rest of the country and sometimes other parts of the world as well. Hey, we're about out of time. Joseph, remind people of the website and to go. We've got a donate page too, where there are other ways to give, not just straight up donation, but taxes, and what else is there? And I think you're muted, Joseph.
Technology. Right, there are plenty of ways to donate here at Texas Values, txvalues.org/donate, of course. But this year end, we are actually asking people to go to a link that I've been trying to post in this Facebook Live here, but it's txvalues.org/year-end-donate, and it helps comes to a page that actually helps us track how many of these donations we need to start with this matching program that we have. I have a little scan thing right here that you can scan it if you have your phone out to get there. We also have some information.
Can they do that on Facebook right now?
If they're using a computer and they're not using their phone, they can. And it'll take them right to the website as it is. Can
I do it? Here, I'm going to try.
All right, here goes.
Oh, it works.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that. Even with me on my screen here, I just did that with my phone. You can see, there it is. There's the link, people.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of ways to donate to Texas Values. Every dollar matters. Of course, we have enhanced giving and these kind of things. And if you want to find out some more information about that, we'd love to talk to you about that, 512-478-2220. But if there's a donation today that you feel like, well, I have maybe a couple $5 extra bucks this year, every donation helps us in this, especially with the session coming up, and education will need to be expedited, especially during session. And so,
well, look, I mean, I don't think it's an exaggeration. The work we do had an impact on whether a church stayed open, and not just one, many, whether a life was saved or not. I mean, the work we're doing is essential. Pregnancy centers, the babies, the churches, these are things, they're core issues. That's why religious liberty is in the First Amendment of the Constitution. That's how important it is. These issues are life and death. I mean, there's no question about it. And that's what we do. We're in the role of serving people and serving these principles so life can be preserved, so church and religious liberty can flourish, and people can go to those places that they rely on in such trying times. It's even more important, if you will, for the churches to be open or be accessible, and for people to be able to be there in those sacred places. And so, hey, we're about out of time of our setup time to do this. And so txvalues.org is the website. Look, thank you for sticking with us this year. Thank you for seeing value in what we do. And we hope you have a blessed, happy new year.